As we get closer and closer to the 2025 NFL Draft, we still have some pretty unique and crazy stories that need to be shared. The subject of today's video, Shavon Revel Jr., might top all of this year's draft prospects. Despite having good numbers in high school, he literally had 0 FBS offers, and at one point, after going the JUCO route, he was so far behind in his football career, he was actually working for an Amazon warehouse. Combining that with nearly 3 or 4 horrible injuries, Shavon Revel had no future. But after one football camp, he ended up gaining an offer that changed his life. One school took a chance on him, and now all of a sudden he's probably going to be a first-round pick and an NFL player. Today, I want to tell you the story of Shavon Revel Jr. How did he overcome nearly impossible odds to get to this point, and how good will this guy be in the NFL? We're going to try to talk about that today, but before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Shavon Revel Jr. Let's first start out with a quote. There were a lot of points where I could have given up, but I can't give up on the sport I love. That's what Shavon ended up saying. Family and football have always gone hand in hand for the Revels, as he ended up growing up playing sports with his older brother, and they grew up in the Winston-Salem area. He played throughout middle school and high school, and when he was at Ronald W. Reagan High School in North Carolina, things almost took a very dark turn. He was playing both quarterback and corner for them at the time, and his sophomore season came to a nearly tragic end. After practice one night, Revel was in the car with his 2 brothers and his father, and he suffered a severe coughing fit and apparently briefly blacked out behind the wheel. The car collided with a cement wall, and he said, quote, "We didn't know what happened. All I know is when I looked into the back seat, it looked like there was a hole in Shavon's head." Thankfully, all 4 members of the family survived the crash, but Shavon ended up suffering a fractured skull, which required surgery. He had a bruised jaw and neck as well, and a broken nose that needed 28 stitches. Just like that, his football season was over. It took nearly 6 months of rehab for Revel to return to a normal physical routine, but he made it back onto the football field in time for his junior season, which is the key year for recruiting. A couple of schools were starting to show interest in him, but then he would break his collarbone midway through the year, and he was once again on the sidelines. By this point, Revel was also fighting an uphill battle academically, and he admits he was probably too focused on football. All he wanted to do was lift, practice, and play ball, and his grades suffered because of it. But he would produce as a senior, as he ended up having 38 tackles, 3 TFLs, and 4 interceptions, with 33 catches for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. Between his injuries and the classroom, Revel saw interest in him go away. As his career ended, he had no Division I offers on the table. Because of that, he would end up signing with Lewisburg College, a small 2-year JUCO located in rural North Carolina. His plan was to get his grades in order, then transfer up to an FBS school. But with everything going on in the world in 2020, the season was canceled and he had no additional game tape. He wanted to prove he belonged on a bigger stage, but it just wasn't happening. To stay busy and make money, Revel actually joined his dad in 2021 and began working in an Amazon warehouse. His once promising football career was stuck, and it started to feel like it could be permanent. His dad said, quote, "I just needed to get him on the field in front of some coaches." Luckily, there was a 7-on-7 coach who knew he had the talent to make it, and he signed him up for several prospect camps. In June of 2021, he went to Greenville, North Carolina, where East Carolina is. Fresh off of a 10-hour shift, they would make the drive to ECU's campus with the hope that someone would take notice of his skills. But there were no real expectations that the camp would lead to anything. But his dad then said, quote, "When I saw him run his 40-yard dash, the coach pretty much chased him down. I knew it was good news." Their offensive coordinator said, quote, "We didn't know much about him, really nothing. We were like, holy smokes. When we saw him run and work out in the same position drills, we knew he was legit." So because of this, they decided to make Shavon an offer. If he got good grades, he could get an East Carolina offer, so he took the chance. He ended up having a 2.2 GPA, and colleges were not really taking guys like that, but they offered him an opportunity, and as long as he got it up, he would be there. From there, he got a bunch of accountability, as him and his dad made sure that every single day he was doing his work, was on top of things, and was preparing for his opportunity. Shavon Revel was now going to get a chance to play college football. According to 24/7 Sports, he was a 3-star player, the number 14 corner, and the 87th best player in the junior college class. So how would he end up doing at ECU? So you'd think now all of a sudden that things would go smoothly for him, right? Wrong. Instead, once Shavon got to ECU, He immediately broke his hand during fall camp, which left him playing catch-up throughout his first season with the Pirates. Most of his snaps in 2022 would end up coming on special teams. And then, to make matters worse, I'm not even kidding you guys at this point, his oldest sister ended up dying from kidney failure. Revel would end up playing in 9 games during his first season at ECU and would make a total of 8 tackles. This is truly heartbreaking at this point, and this guy is someone I am rooting for. But then finally, the stars would align for Revel, and he'd end up getting his due. In 2023, he would earn a starting spot at the corner position, and then went on to lead the Pirates with 13 pass deflections and 2 blocked field goals. He also had a 57-yard pick six, and just 2 years after chasing down a shot in the FBS, he finally had his way, and NFL scouts also began to take notice. He was named a second-team All-AAC corner for the Pirates, but there was something else brewing. In the middle of 2023, the Pirates corners coach Jules Monitar ended up knowing he needed to get ahead of something. That would be the transfer portal. With the portal opening in a little over 2 months, he ended up giving Shavon and his dad a call. He said, quote, "Here's what's going to happen. These schools are going to try to blow you up, try to get you in the portal, and promise you all this money. It's going to happen." Shavon Revel obviously thought it could happen, but they were also shocked when it finally came to fruition. Some big-time programs started to prod around, which included Alabama, Texas, LSU, and Penn State, all of which were ready to give him huge NIL packages, apparently well into 6 figures. Shavon said, quote, "Of course transferring popped in my head because I was being offered a lot of money. But looking at my mom and dad and the way they worked for everything they got, I decided to stay at ECU. I just didn't agree with the kids being handed that kind of money. I wanted to earn it." Honestly, this guy gets a lot of respect, and given his background and situation, I don't blame him at all for doing so, and this reminds me a lot of last year's top corner prospect from Toledo, Quinyon Mitchell. But typically when you try to do the right thing, difficulties are always on the horizon. In the preseason of 2024, he was actually considered the 12th overall prospect in the Athletics Top 50 Big Board. But, as I said, it would be short-lived, as just 3 games into 2024, he would suffer a torn ACL. At the time, he had 2 interceptions, one of which was a pick six, and he was a top performer according to PFF and graded 85.5. He was the 7th best corner this season, but again, it was a small sample size. All of a sudden, Shavon was now back nursing an injury, not on the field, and probably questioning his entire life. But, as he's now been programmed and ingrained to do, he bounced back. He decided to declare for the 2025 NFL Draft, and while being in Greensville for 3 years, he made 24 appearances. He ended up having 71 total tackles, 8 pass deflections, 3 interceptions, and a sack. The East Carolina Pirates have never had a top 20 draft pick and have only had 2 first-rounders in school history. The last one was Chris Johnson back in 2008, but the dynamic corner is probably going to make a case to be a first-round pick. Even with his injury, he stands at a strong chance at being a first-round selection, and he could be one of the first corners off the board in this year's talented position group. Currently, when you check out NFL Mock Database, he's a projected second-round pick, the 38th overall prospect, and has a 48% chance of going in the first round. Some have him as high as the teens, while others have him as a second-rounder. Again, I think he's a guy that if he goes in the first round, it'll obviously be late, but no matter what, this guy truly has an epic story. Obviously, there are 2 major knocks on his game, and that includes a horrible injury history going back to that car accident, high school, and then obviously his 2 injuries at ECU. And then secondly, the small sample size against smaller competition. Nothing against the American Athletic Conference, but they aren't exactly the SEC, and he really only had 1 good season, so that small sample size against lesser competition definitely kind of holds him back. But scouts are in love with his measurables, as he is 6'2" and 194 pounds and has long arms. He has the kind of length that defensive coaches in the NFL really like, and he's also a crazy athlete, as he has 4.4 speed and great leaping ability. He has experience as a corner, a receiver, and a track runner, so if they can get him to physically develop in the NFL, he'll definitely be a steal and could blossom into one of the better corners in the league. But it seems like a lot of this is based on potential for Shavon, so he does have bust potential. I hope it doesn't happen, but knowing him, he's going to make something out of nothing. The guy has been given nothing but roadblocks his entire life and has found a way to always get through. These are my favorite stories to cover on the channel, and what do you guys think? If you're an East Carolina or an NFL fan, what do you think of Shavon Revel Jr., and what other prospects should I cover in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below. Check out my playlist with all my 2025 NFL Draft stories and all my other videos on the end screen, including my video about the rise of Mike Green, the big draft prospect from Marshall. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.